We talk family, spiritual disease of addiction. We say family because it's not addiction is not just isolated to the individual quote unquote identified patient in the family, but has a tendency, a regular tendency to impact everyone in the family, whether that person who is struggling with alcoholism or drug addiction or food related addiction or lust addiction or gambling addiction or go on and on, hoarding, cluttering. Is when that's happening, then their lack of presence, whether physically or emotionally or both, creates forces where everyone else in the family has to adapt, take on new roles, perhaps assume some roles which they shouldn't need to. Some of those adaptations are for in security measures. We learn how to take care of ourselves, cope with the situation at hand, and that may have some immediate security, provide some immediate security, but oftentimes in the long term has adverse consequences. And so oftentimes family members will experience the same kind of symptoms or deeper issues that the addict experiences as well. It leads to great deals of shame,
Hmm.
resentment, fear, isolation. We start to make excuses for our loved ones, or we don't want other people to find out. We kind of stop telling some people about what's really going on in our lives. We begin to hide and withdraw from healthy relationships, and at the same time, that can lead to a lack of trust in other people and the people that we're closest to, and in many ways distance us from God. So we see a lot of those same issues that we might point to as someone struggling with addiction in their family members, the people who love them as well.
Hmm.
Say spiritual disease, because of that, what I mentioned, the lack of trust, these new forms of adaptation, the distance from God, that takes leads to a spiritual sickness, a spiritual malady, and requires a spiritual solution. And disease, because it's something that by our own powers we can't necessarily tend to ourselves. Certainly, it
Hmm.
takes an act of providence to find freedom, and is, in many ways, this adaptation. I would say that some of the insanity of family members is just as prevalent, if not even more obvious, for perhaps the outsider to see than it is for the person who is sick or experiencing
Hmm.
that malady.